Hello, Barmy Badger Army.
Hey, Badger Army.
Welcome to today's show. Now, as you guys know, we did a community post last night where we basically asked what you guys would like to see in today's On The Bench. And, of course, me as a awesome person who obviously listens to his viewers 85% of the time.
Oddly specific figure.
We are now going to talk about the different things that you guys want to hear about. So obviously we had some suggestions from Geek, Sai and some other people, and they were talking about wrestling, Hawaiian pizza, and of course toys and different things like that. So let's go ahead. Right, okay, Nick, your thoughts on Hawaiian pizza?
It's got pineapples on it, hasn't it?
It has.
To be honest with you, there are worse things you can put on a pizza than pineapples.
This is true. Now I'm going to expand upon this because I have a bit of more of an interesting debate on this. Now, the problem is with Hawaiian pizza, if it's undercooked, you get all the juice from the pineapple seeping onto the bread or the dough, as it were. And this is the problem. So if it's undercooked, you get this slightly sweet, acidic mess of slodge in your oven with some, maybe some half-cooked ham.
Is that where the controversy originally started?
I think so. I think this is why. I mean, obviously there's the side of it where it's fruit and obviously meat going together. That is, and cheese as well. And don't forget, like, pineapple is actually quite an acidic fruit. So that with cheese could mean a disaster. So this is where you need to think about these things. I personally don't mind them as long as they're well cooked, but if it's a big sloshy mess, that's a big no-no from Mr. Badger. What about you, Nick? Thinking about what we talked about,
That's
what do you
probably
think?
That's probably the most informative debate on pineapple on a pizza I've ever heard. Most people just get outraged about it because, well, the internet tells them to.
The internet tells them to. Well, I've given you a decent reason why not to like it and why to like it.
If you've ever wondered where the controversy comes from,
this is true.
Then yeah, that
look no further.
Some way to explaining why.
Exactly. Yeah. Indeed. And so, Nick, we're also going to talk about some of the video games we're looking forward to. I am personally looking forward to, of course, getting Blair Witch Project, as you guys know. Predator.
20 years on, there's a Blair Witch video
game which we talked about. And also, we did another episode of On The Bench where we did a 20th anniversary about Blair Witch. So please do see that. I'm definitely looking forward to Blair Witch Project on PlayStation.
Do you just have to go in the woods and get lost?
Pretty much, and try and avoid ghosts and witches and stuff. It's going to be lots of fun, and of course you'd all be really scared. I can't wait. Obviously, Predator Hunting Grounds, that's one to look forward to. Streets of Rage 4, Nostalgia. There's lots of different things that are going to be very tempting, and we're looking forward to them. Toys-wise, as you guys know, I currently collect Venoms, symbiotes, and of course Spider-Man figures. And when I was a child, I used to collect He-Man, Thundercats and Transformers. They were really cool. What about you, Nick?
I had some Transformer toys. We had lots of we had Get Along Gang toys.
Okay, I remember we talked about those before.
So we had a bunch of those figures hanging around. My older sister liked My Little Ponies, so there was loads of those flying around, and Cindy dolls as well.
Cindy dolls,
so, yeah. We had, so kind of like, I don't think I really had much space for anything that I collected because they were all taken up by big sisses.
Okay.
Toys and collections.
Was she literally like, no, Nick, you can't have any of your toys in here?
Mercifully not.
She wasn't the female version of Sid then? She didn't start melting it all down?
No, she didn't. No, she wasn't like that. So we had lots of them. We had various figures of... does anyone else remember Acorn Green?
Acorn Green? Well, that's a random one. I don't remember that. Was that by... what company was that by?
I can't even remember. It was I know it was a selection of stories that were available on... It was a selection of stories that was made by the Rainbow series of books.
Okay.
And there
was in like the ITV show or something else?
I don't think there was. I don't actually know if there was a cartoon series ever made about it. But there was a comic, and and like tapes, story tapes.
Oh, okay, that's proper old school, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit. So yeah, it was. But there was loads of stuff around about it, and so we had a fair few of those in our house.
Okay.
And various other bits of collections. We had random Care Bear toy figures lying around.
Cool.
So but I didn't have a lot of like action figures or anything like that. I like Transformers, but I wasn't so much into the other ones. And also while I really like Transformers, I wasn't a huge fan of the cartoons because I just found the storylines hard to follow.
Yes, and I think we've mentioned that before, haven't we? There are now cartoons involving Transformers called Rescue Bots, which are geared more for the age group that we would have been at the time. And I think it would have been a lot more fun for us if we would have even understood what was going on.
Yeah.
It's interesting how they can take something that's geared for adults and turn it into a kid's brand, and I think that's what they did for Transformers. And another side note, they obviously did that with Batman Returns, Terminator, and of course more infamously Aliens, where they took something that was definitely an 80s or 90s brand and turned it into a kids thing, even though it was an 18 rated film. But that's a censorship and of course a guideline issue, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just weird.
It is weird, and that was in the 80s and 90s, gentlemen and ladies.
Yes, and we nearly saw it again with Thundercats.
Most definitely, yeah. Thundercats was easier to understand, I thought.
Yes.
I got the grasp of
I think I got a few more ideas of that. So.
Indeed, yeah. So next, of course, we're going to talk about the wrestling industry, and I want to touch upon the fact that, of course, the NWO is now in the Hall of Fame, which is, of course, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, X-Pac, and, of course, Hulk Hogan, or as he's going to be called in this variation, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So this will technically be the second time that Hulk Hogan is in the Hall of Fame after his little blip the other year when he got removed. Now they're obviously thinking NWO needs to go in, Hogan, we want him back in officially, let's do this, let's put him back in properly and cement him back into the universe. I mean, I really love Hulk Hogan. That doesn't mean he's a good person or anything like that. That is a separate issue. He's a man, he's made mistakes, he's owned up to those. I don't really want to go too much into that. But there is a big video we could make about that. He's an interesting man. He's probably one of the biggest icons of sports entertainment, and he is definitely one of my favourites. But that doesn't mean he's a good person, because I personally still love Chris Benoit's wrestling skills, and we all know what happened there. But yeah, so your thoughts on Hogan going into the Hall of Fame, buddy?
Well, I don't think he would go in on his own. He would do it as part of an organisation,
like the NWO, like you suggested.
And I think when you consider how long some of those names like Kevin Nash and some of the other names that you mentioned have been around for.
Indeed, Big Sexy and all that. 1, 2, 3 Kid.
It is the sort of, you would expect them to be put in at some point, and it wouldn't surprise me too much if they've delayed that.
That's right, yeah.
I think it was one. So they're probably kind of waiting for it all to die down a bit, and then putting in, and they can use. It's a good thing that they're doing it now rather than a few years back.
Obviously,
it would look like they're just trying to attract publicity for all the wrong reasons.
Exactly, and now he's officially back in the WWE as well. He's worked on Crown Jewel, he's worked on WrestleMania, things like that. So he has been back in the company sporadically.
And they can argue that it's not focusing on him, it's focusing on the organisation.
That's right, the NWO.
So it doesn't focus on one particular wrestler.
Which is good.
Yeah, I think if they were going to do it at some point, then they can do it. Then do it now, and as I was saying, at least they're doing it. It feels more on merit rather than them trying to create adverse publicity.
Most definitely. I mean, the NWO, I don't know if you know much about that. In WCW, the NWO was probably one of the biggest stables ever.
Oh, it would have been, yeah.
Yeah, it was based on a Japanese idea of obviously the Yakuza and things like that. and obviously other different things. I'm sure you guys will tell me about this. And it was basically based upon that warring faction idea of two gangs. Obviously, the one gang would be the the WCW originals, and the other side of it would be the turncoat bad guys of the NWO. And it was perhaps one of the best and biggest wrestling storylines in history. Fight me.
I mean,
So,
Hulk Hogan's heel turn was probably the most famous heel turn ever.
It was.
You know?
It was one of the most famous heel turns. It was totally unexpected. No one thought it was going to happen. It was totally out of the book. Everyone was insanely like, "Wow, this is insane."
And I do remember him being referred. And I do remember because WCW was actually on television back in the day.
That's right.
And I was just like, why are they all calling him Hollywood Hogan?
Exactly, because it's changed, isn't it? I mean, he was spitting at the audience, he was swearing. It was a complete 360 with his personality and the character and the dress code and all the merch as well. Everyone ate it up and it was fantastic. So there you go. What else did we want to talk about?
We mentioned the possibility of a Joker sequel.
That's right. Your thoughts on the Joker and what you think of the film in general, Nick, and then we'll get on to a sequel. Could you hold the thing? It's hurting my hand.
Indeed. I haven't. I've only seen bits of the Joker film, but I get the. But it's probably the most well received of the recent films from that particular cinematic universe.
Yes, that's right.
You know, and I think it offered a really interesting perspective on the concept of the Joker,
Yes.
and I think that's why it's gone down so well with people.
That's right, and it was very interesting how they explored his mental state, and the actual story behind him becoming the Joker was really thought out, with his mental health depleting and different things that kept happening to him, and people were lying to him, and his mum was ill. There was all these different things. Obviously he was a failed comedian. There's all these things that kept adding and adding and adding, and then it just toppled over. It was really interesting the way they did it.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I'm not surprised by the idea that they would want to make a sequel for it. You know, ultimately it was a successful film.
Most definitely, and there's plenty of legs for it. You know, you can have obviously the first film obviously had a love interest of sorts. I'm not going to tell you much about that just in case you haven't seen it. But obviously the possibility now is the driving force for obviously either Batman to come into it, or they can introduce Harley Quinn. Neither of those, you know, you don't really need Batman in it to introduce Harley Quinn. So they could literally do a film where the Joker starts his romance with Harley Quinn. Trust me, there would be a film about that easy. But you could definitely include Batman if you wanted to, but it depends. Like the whole Batman situation with DC is in flux anyway at this moment.
I think as long as they can find enough material to use.
Exactly,
because,
then it's worthwhile, isn't it?
Because the impression I get is that the backstory of the Joker hadn't really been explored on film before.
Not really,
so,
no. I think
so. You know, it was offering something that, you know, an area that hadn't been done before.
Yeah,
you know, so it's like something that hadn't really been covered.
No.
So I would say they probably could bring out a sequel. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they didn't.
I mean,
if they did. But they'd need to make sure that they're not just treading old ground.
Exactly. The only problem is, obviously, getting back to, I'm going to start 2 points. The only time they've ever really seen the Joker transformation truly in the film is the Batman 1989 one. If I remember correctly, The Dark Knight left it as a mystery to where he came from, and then obviously Suicide Squad was a dumpster fire, so don't expect much from that. And then obviously you've got Joaquin Phoenix's interpretation, where he doesn't like doing sequels, I believe. He likes doing one film and done. So it's going to be very interesting. What would it take for him to do a sequel other than a shed load of cash, which I don't think he's that worried about, because I don't imagine him being a skint man. So what would it take? Probably a good storyline, a very good director, a very well thought out timepiece, and obviously a good reason to come back. What else would you add to that, Nick?
I would say, you know, I mean, it's you know, you're connecting, you know, at the same time, you know, he might be worried about connecting himself to a franchise.
Yes, this is true. I didn't think of that. That's true.
It's not necessarily a bad franchise to be connected to.
No, most definitely.
You know, and it's a reliable one.
Exactly,
So-
and obviously the guys, you know, I can understand getting onto a slightly different topic here with the Marvel films. I personally believe it is oversaturated, but people keep going to see them, so that's great. If I was an actor and someone said to me, do you want to be Captain America for the next 20 years? I go, hell yeah. Give me those lovely, delicious paychecks, and I'm doing what I love. Do you know what I mean? It's almost guaranteed work now for actors. Do a superhero film, you'll be in work for 10 years, easy. Do you know what I mean? It seems like a good idea to me. You might get bored, but you'll be putting food on the table. So this is what you need to think about.
I mean, it's like, so it kind of depends. So yeah, you know, it's like, speaking as an actor myself, I think I've been, you know, I've thought about kind of like being over connected with certain characters, but there's nothing stopping you from going
On the
to
Badger.
other films in the meantime. It's you know, it's like when you look at Tom Holland, he's got Spies in Disguise, the cartoon
right.
film coming out. He was also in the film about, I think it was about Thomas Edison.
That's right, yeah.
You know, I was quite surprised to see him in that. I was just like, blimey, you have time to do stuff other than Spider-Man?
Exactly,
So,
exactly. It's
yeah,
mad,
there
isn't
you-
it?
so,
There you go.
Yeah, it kind of, so it is a bit of a double-edged sword, but at
Yeah.
the same time, there are some franchises that it's good to be connected with and some that it's not so good. And I would say, you know, the role of the Joker is probably quite a flexible role. I dare say it's more flexible than a lot of superhero roles.
Well, most definitely. And I'm going to hark upon a bit of a comment from the comic books. There's actually going to be a storyline based called The Three Jokers. So basically, it would allow there to be 3 different Jokers around in maybe even the same universe at the same time. So there you go. It's not just been one person. So there you are. So in theory, you could have several of the different Jokers all around in the DC Universe films being completely different origins. Isn't that interesting, guys? And of course, thank you very much for watching, guys. This has been fun. Thank you very much for my usual on the bench co-host, Mr. Nick.
You are welcome as always.
And of course, there'll be some more travel vlogs from Nick coming soon because that
Yes,
did
indeed.
really well.
Indeed,
And,
there'll be a
lots
Christmas
of
one
stuff.
coming as well.
Exactly. So lots of cool stuff coming up real soon. I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a real hoot. I need to go. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Check out all the different bits and pieces from me and Nick. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye for now, Badger Army.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. And don't forget, comment on all the different things we talked about today. And of course, let me know anything else you want us to talk about. This has been a fan episode. So please let me know if you'd like to see more of those. See you next time. Bye.
Bye for now.